Welcome to my presentation about the new revealed Red and Yono support cards. And yes, I know I'm a bit late, but whatever, I still think I have stuff to say on these ones. The players that are familiar with the physical TCG game will already have identified these as very strong cards, but for newer players that only came here for Pocket, I want to explain why I personally believe this card will have a big impact on the game. Starting with Yono. Yono can have two purposes. The first one is a consistency tool. If you don't have a good hand, especially early in the game when you want to set up and you want to search for the Pokemon, you can just redraw your entire hand so that you will have a bigger chance of drawing the cards you need. And this is great. This is definitely good. And later in the game, or even early in the game, but mostly later in the game, you will be able to disrupt your opponent. Similarly to Red card, which is played in some decks like Mewtwo EX Gardevoir decks. If you have a feel that your opponents might have the good cards, like the cards they need at that stage in the game, you can use Yono to force them to reshuffle. Or if it's early in the game, the opponent is quite set up and they might have an evolution in hand, or they didn't play the tool cards yet, you can just throw away their plans. This type of effect has been present for so long in the physical TCG. First there was N for 2 generations, and we got Marnie and Yono. A card that was named Yono, but not this Yono, the other one that I put on screen.
This is the real me, not this. This, not this.
They have all been meta-defining. What they do is somewhat different depending on the card, but they're the same kind of effect. And they all had their respective place in the meta game. And obviously Pocket Yono is weaker because these cards on screen right now may potentially allow you to draw more cards than you had before, or potentially even greatly reduce the amount of cards your opponent has in hand. But usually in Pokemon Pocket the supported cards are at a lower power level, so I believe it's still very good for Pocket's environment. I think Yono will benefit the most. This Yono, it's kind of confusing to have two different Yonos compared to the game.
This, not this.
Whatever. Pocket Yono, I believe will be very especially useful for stage 2 decks, so that you will have much higher chances of getting the evolution lines when you need them. Obviously you gotta be careful because you may run the risk of just putting away cards that you needed, so you have to be very careful when playing Yono. And then there's the other card, Red. Plus 20 damage is big, only to X's, but this is basically Giovanni but better. And most of the times you use Giovanni to reach certain damage thresholds against EX Pokemon. Obviously there may be times where you want to, for instance, if you want to KO an opponent Magneton, but most of the time it's EXs. And this is a lot better for that job. Trust me, plus 20 is big. It's really big. I believe it might make more Pokemon playable because it may allow for bigger benchmarks, but at the same time it might also just be played the decks that were good before, because nobody's preventing you to play this in EX focused decks, like let's say Arceus Dialga decks. And again, just like Yono, there have been historically a lot of this kind of effect in the physical TCG, and they've all been amazing. I'm saying rulebots instead of X's because depending on the time period, they can be different. But there's not just the X Pokemon, sometimes they're called differently, it depends on the time period, but the point is the same. It's the same category of Pokemon as the X's in Pokemon Pocket, so yeah, they do the same job. Obviously it's 30 more damage because the health points are way higher in the physical TCG compared to Pocket, but it's the same principle, and I believe just as this card had a massive impact in the physical TCG, they will have a very big impact in Pokemon Pocket. Overall, I honestly think these additions are actually really good for the game. Yono is a consistency card which Pocket needs more. Because sometimes right now Pocket games can feel a bit luck-based, more than you'd want, and it could use some consistency, which Yono will provide. And it's also a card that will reward good players, because you have to consider it requires knowledge on how ordering works, which is a card game skill which I might make a vid on about in the future, but it essentially boils down to playing cards in the correct order to have the best outcome possible. Like for instance, if you have Yono and Pokeball, do you play Pokeball before Yono? It really depends on the context. It's cases like this, and Yono introduces more of that, and also has the disrupting potential. Red card is a relatively probably one of the hardest cards to play, because it really requires a more abstract layer of thought compared to most cards in the game. And yeah, I mean, again, I believe Pocket can benefit a bit for having more skill testing cards. Pocket needs to be accessible, but having a bit more skill involved is definitely nice, considering current state of the game. And Red might help variety in the meta, since more Pokemon might be able to reach certain benchmark. Though again, as I said before, take this with a grain of salt, because it might just make already good decks better. But yeah, I don't think it makes the game worse. I think both will have a good impact on the game. Now that's gonna be it for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe for more content about the Pokemon TCGs or Splatoon. I will go live when the new expansion drop, which means 1 PM EST or 6 PM in Europe. And I hope to see you again very soon.
Bye.